I ask them, well, what do you like about the program? Because I want them to sell me. And sometimes I'll ask them, are you sure you want to do this? Which seems unconventional, right? Where you're like, I'm pushing them away because I want to make sure that they know that they're in control of this decision, that it's not me trying to get them to make this decision.
Freedom, impact, money. This is the Closers Network podcast.
Why don't you tell everybody what your name is and where you're from?
My name's Sam. I'm from Vancouver, Canada.
Vancouver, Canada. Yeah. Awesome. Well, thanks for coming down, Sam. I'd love to know, man, like, how did you even get started in sales?
How did I get started? I got a job at a big box gym many years ago, 20 years ago.
Oh, wow.
And that's how I got started in sales. It was not pretty to start off with.
How long ago was that?
So that was 20 years ago.
20 years ago.
Yeah.
Okay. And if you don't mind sharing with the audience, how long have you now been a part of One Call Closers and how you ended up here?
Yeah, so I've been part of One Call Closers for the last year. And I got connected through Ian, who introduced me to 1CC.
Okay, awesome. Did you do any type of high ticket sales prior to joining One Call Closers?
Not necessarily, but personal training is used to selling high premium packages, so in person. But in terms of remote, this was my first time selling online.
Oh, wow. Okay, cool. So it sounds like you were selling at a big box gym about 20 years ago. Is that kind of what you did for pretty much most of the time before you kind of got a gig like this?
Yeah, so I've been a trainer for 20 years and I've been a fitness studio owner for about 15 years.
Oh, wow. Okay, so you run a business, a fitness studio.
Yes, that's correct.
That's awesome. Yeah. And that's up in Canada.
Up in Canada, yeah.
Very cool. Now, going from a big box situation and selling in person to having a transition into a remote and online high ticket sale, share with me a little bit what that process looked like. Did you have any challenges? Was there anything that you can share with our audience that maybe can benefit them?
Yeah. There was a big transition for sure. I when I started, I was overly confident, thinking, I've been a trainer for a long time. I can do this. What I learned really quickly was the volume is far, far greater doing it remote, the way that it is, right? So in one day, I might be seeing 10 people. In person studio, 10 is like in a month average. So it was overwhelming in the beginning where you're seeing maybe over 100 people in a month. And that means you're going to get a lot more rejection.
Yeah.
You're going to get yeses too, but it was overwhelming when I first started. So it's been quite the journey. There's been moments where I almost, at one point I was almost burnt out. I was like, wow, this is quite intense. So there's some changes that I had to make in order to overcome that.
I'd love to hear, if you don't mind breaking down what you had to overcome and what some of those changes were.
So coming from the gym model, we're taught to always be closing, right? So ABC, right? Anybody that walks in, you're gonna sell them, and so there's that pressure to perform, right? I was very quota based, very competitive by nature, and so what I realized though when I was jumping on these calls that not everybody wants my help, right? So it's like I had to learn that. There are qualifiers that I need to go through when I'm jumping on these calls. I think about one, do they have a problem that I can solve that we can help with? Two, do they even want our help? And do they want our help now, or they're months away or weeks away? As well as, do they even have the financial capacity to pay? So all of those things, I realized that it was important to kind of qualify that to see if it was even worth the time to continue that conversation. The sheer volume was overwhelming because I was also quite attached to this sale, where it's like, I need to close this person. And that created a lot of pressure, a lot of fight or flight for me, where it's like jumping on these calls in the beginning, I had butterflies, where I was like, kind of like, going on a roller coaster. Where you're going up the tracks, you get the butterflies, right? And then, I don't know what's going to happen with these calls or how my day is going to end up. And so, that was quite overwhelming for me, where when I did close, I get really excited. And then when I didn't close, I would feel like crap. I'm like, what's going on with my abilities? So there was a ton of emotions in the beginning when I first started. And eventually, I still did perform. But it did lead to burnout.
That's very interesting because I did feel like I've certainly, have gone through that myself, like the highs and then the lows. And I'd love to know from you, like, how do you navigate that? It seems like you're in a spot where you've maybe found some stability, right? But it sounds like there was a moment where there was a lot of emotional instability. Like, what can someone do, including like myself, to maybe not feel that burnout, like, and essentially like not have to go there, but be able to control and manage their emotions?
So that's what I've realized, that this is a game, a profession of managing those emotions. Right? You definitely need to manage that fight or flight, keep those emotions in check when dealing with objections, right? The old Sam would get quite apprehensive, right? It would jump in, try to neutralize that objection. And so I've realized that I have to stay calm on these calls, and that way I can think clearer. I can speak what I'm going to say. I can articulate. So, I mean, it took a long time. I've lost my train of thought all of a sudden.
Oh, it's all good. No, no, it's all good. So it was just like really just understanding, like, so it sounds like basically what I hear you saying, Sam, is essentially you the way you manage your emotions is you don't get too excited when you hear, hey, I'm in the objection, it's time to close, but you try to maintain cool, calm, and collected in order to be able to manage that conversation from that point on when you're in the objection.
Yes. And so what I've also realized, though, was to focus on the process as opposed to just the outcome. And so as a trainer for a long time, clients want to lose X amount of weight. Sure. You know, let's say they want to lose 30 pounds. And I mean, that's a big goal. That's overwhelming. Sometimes there's a lot of pressure. Right. And if they don't, achieve that, they feel like they failed. So I've taught my clients, let's focus on their processes. You need X amount of workouts. You need to meal prep once a week. We need to learn how to cook, how to grocery shop. I apply that to my high ticket sales career to really focus on the process to ensure that I have a good outcome. So what that means for me is studying, ongoing learning, reviewing calls, other people's calls, colleagues, reviewing my own calls. After each call, I do have a spreadsheet thinking like, how did that go? Like, what could I have done differently? And so just focusing on that process, like over time, I also know my closing ratio. So I know if I do X amount of calls, I'm going to generate X amount of revenue. So that took a lot of pressure off.
For sure.
In terms of trying to close everybody. And as I previously mentioned, it's also about pre-qualifying them. Like, we don't need to spend that amount of time on other people that do not even want our service.
I'm 1,000% on the same page. And a lot of people in sales have different trains of thought. But the first thing is, I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm not going to come on a call and within the first 2 to 5 minutes just be like, you're not qualified. I'm going to spend 10, 15, 20 minutes if need be to really better understand the situation. But I don't have any trouble turning someone away and just letting them know, hey, maybe it's not the right time, and almost like pushing them away. And if I get a sense where like, actually this person seems like they want it, maybe they just have buyer's remorse or they're hopping on a lot of these sales calls, they will reel themselves back in.
Yes.
Have you felt that?
That's right. And it's always better to do it that way as opposed to try to convince them that they need this.
Right.
So sometimes what really works well is, let's say they said yes. I ask them, well, what do you like about the program? Because I want them to sell me. And sometimes I'll ask them, are you sure you want to do this? Which seems unconventional, right? Where you're like, I'm pushing them away because I want to make sure that they know that they're in control of this decision, that it's not me trying to get them to make this decision.
1,000%. Dude, that's really powerful. And I think there's a lot of nuggets in there for everyone to tune into, because I think what happens is a lot of people are scared to lose the deal. Yeah. And they're too attached to that specific deal or that specific person. And they don't realize, like you're saying, hey, you know what your closing ratio is. So if this call doesn't work out, all I got to do is take a few more and boom, I'm going to be right where I need to be. Yeah. I'd love to know, when you made this transition and you came to One Call Closers, how has support been overall for you? If you can talk a little bit, whether it's your team lead, whether it's just the company culture, is there any insight you can give to people on just your overall day-to-day and what that looks like from like a culture standpoint with One Call Closers?
I mean, the way that I think of high-ticket sales, it's almost like you're on an island all by yourself, essentially, right? Because we're all on our own individual calls, right? But like the help that we receive from our team leaders is amazing, right? There's always, they're checking in, there's daily meetings. We have the ability to book one-on-one coaching calls, which is amazing because we get to review calls in terms of like what went wrong and how to improve. So like the culture definitely, I feel, that I have a team of people who are in the trenches or have already done it that I can learn from. And it goes the other way too, where there's other newer closers that, you know, I can also be a mentor towards. And so we do have these conversations in our DMs. And that's another reason why I'm here at the Christmas party in person, just to network, because I think that's valuable as well, to have conversations, to share each other, like with each other, like the struggles that we have, because there are struggles and challenges. The grass isn't always green. It's been amazing. This community is amazing with like-minded individuals, so I feel very supported.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. So is there anything you do that you can share with the audience on, like, is it just part of the trainings you attend? Is it maybe part of the school network? How do you stay sharp? Is there anything that you do to continue to improve and just, you know, with the latest trends that are happening in the space?
Yeah. So that's a very good question where, you know, as one of my mentors, Pedro Sculin, would say, never peak, right? You never peak, right?
The best is yet to come.
The best is yet to come. So it's important to recognize that. And so I'm always learning. I have a pre-call routine, like a daily routine. Like I get up at the same time every day, keep my energy level consistent, but I read. I read different books depending on what I need. It could be mindset, it could be sales books, right? Just to get my mind correct. I also review my calls, my colleagues' calls. I also take care of my body, right? Take care of my health, because I find that that's important, that I need to eat good food and get my exercise in. So I ensure that I schedule that. And in fact, I do schedule my meal times around my calls. Because I know that's super important, because I need to keep my energy level up. And as well as I ensure that I get 7 to 8 hours of sleep every day. So it's an ongoing process. But that's what keeps me sharp and gets me passionate about continually growing.
That's awesome, man. And you know, in your talking and the different things you're saying, I'm like, man, you got a lot of processes in place. You do things very intentionally. And I think there's something to speak for the success that you're having, because you have those processes in place and you're very intentional about them. Now, you mentioned books, right? Is there any book specifically, or maybe just anything podcast or book-wise or information-wise, like you would recommend to someone? Maybe it's something you're reading now or something you just finished reading a little while ago. Is there anything you can share with people that might benefit them like it's benefited you?
Yeah, I mean, the books that I read tend to evolve as my career is evolving. Like the very first initial books was just recommended by another closer friend, was How to Win Friends and Influence People, right? To understand the human psychology, how to communicate with them. I mean, I've read some Brian Tracy books. There's some great fundamentals there. And then at one point in time, when I was going through the burnout because of the rejection, I actually read a book by Jia Jiang. It's called Rejection Proof.
I've not heard of that one.
You've never heard of it? So
Rejection Proof.
Yes. So this guy, he would do random stuff. For example, he had a soccer ball, right? He knocked on a neighbor's door, basically asking him, "Hey, can you take a video of me or a picture of me playing soccer in your backyard?" Completely outrageous. Of course, people are going to say no. And so actually one person did say yes. So he actually documents this on his blog. He does multiple outrageous stuff, like going to a burger joint, asking for burger refills. Right? Of course, they're going to say no.
Right.
But he went through that process to basically to get used to rejection. So it's an amazing book. He documents it on his blog. It's completely outrageous, random stuff that you would think that nobody would do. In his book, he shares with us that you get used to rejection, and it's not personal. So that book has been pivotal for me.
That's amazing, man. I definitely want to check that one out.
Hey, I want to take a quick break and introduce you to the Closers Network. If you're not inside the Closers Network yet, you should join us. It's completely free. And 5 days a week, we're gonna go live with hands-on sales coaching. So you can join our coaches live, get feedback to your most pressing questions, increase your monthly commissions, and also land better remote closing opportunities. We have everything you need inside the Closers Network to skyrocket your income. And it's completely free. If you haven't already, I would encourage you to join the 4,500 plus students that are inside right now, smashing deals. Come mastermind with us. And all you gotta do is just click the link down below. It's in the description for you, and we can't wait to see you inside.
Someone that fears rejection, what would you tell that person?
I mean, it's part of the game. There's always going to be a rejection, right? Any sports that you play, there's always a winner and a loser.
Yeah.
So it's just part of the game, and it goes back to once you know your closing ratio, you focus on the processes, you do X amount of calls, and you're going to get X amount of sales, and that involves rejection. Yeah. But like as Brian Tracy would say, I mean, some will, some won't. So what? Next.
That's right. And every no is closer to a yes.
That's actually true too, as well. Yes.
Yeah.
That's the way I think of it.
Which sounds like we're kind of a little bit about what the book is saying. Yeah. So that's really cool. Yeah. Do you feel like since you transitioned from going to an in-person, gig to now more of a remote online, that you have some more control of your time?
Yeah, that's amazing. Being an entrepreneur for quite some time, having to think of working for somebody, was very uncomfortable to think that, I would have to work under somebody else's hours. And so with this line of work, I get to set my own schedule, and that is absolutely amazing. So which I do not take for granted.
For sure. I think it's one of the most beautiful aspects of what we do, is being able to just take calls whenever you want, leave some hours in a day open. Maybe you have kids, you have to pick them up from school. It just makes it so much more convenient to be able to block off these hours and no, dude, I could just make it up by opening up an extra hour here or an extra hour there, but ultimately having control throughout the day, right? So what would you recommend someone that wants to get into high ticket sales? What advice would you have for them? They're really interested. Maybe they're fearing some of the things you're sharing about, the rejection, this, that, but they're like, at least I want to give it a try. Is there any advice you can give to somebody like that that's looking to get into the space?
Well, I think the high ticket space, most people initially, and myself included, is the amount of money making potential, which I think is nice, but I think we have to also realize the why of them getting into this space. They need to also believe in the service that they're selling. So that they have that conviction. So I think that's important as well. I think anybody new getting into it, networking is key, right? I think networking is important to learn from, to get a mentor. That's going to be important so that you have somebody guiding you in terms of how to get through the trials and tribulations of high ticket sales. So I think somebody who wants to get into it, as long as they're passionate about what they're selling and they're authentic to themselves, I think they will do well, right? But if they're doing it for just a monetary reasons, the gig will be short-lived.
1,000%. So. Yeah, no, 1,000%. I'm a testament of that because before even knowing what high ticket sales is or any of this stuff is, I was in a weird stage in my life, but I had found Bedros Koulian on Instagram. And dude, I didn't really know this guy. I had just been following him for a month, but I really liked the messaging he had. I was very attached to it. And I was like, man, I really want to see if there's an opportunity for me to be able to work with this guy because he was just talking about growth and discipline and this. And I'm like, all the things I wanted to be a part of. So I hit him up on the DM and he responds back. He goes, hey, I'm actually hosting an event in San Diego. It's a 3-day event. It's called the Fitness Business Summit. If you're really serious, buy a ticket and come down and see me. Yeah. So I was like, okay. Ticket prices had gone up for the last week. I didn't know that at the time, but I spent like $1,500 to go down to San Diego, dude, from LA. So I went down there. The first day was so busy. I didn't even get a chance to meet him because there's so many people huddling to shake hands and ask him stuff. Second day, same thing. The third day, finally, things cooled down. I had the opportunity to talk to him and to meet him. One thing led to another. I went to a vigorous, multiple interview process and ultimately ended up getting hired and was part of the franchise company. But that everything you're saying is surrounding yourself, right? And following these people, being in these environments, that's a testament of what I did. And I ended up having a great offer to sell for a great team, great training that gave me all the tools and equipped me with everything I needed in order to be able to have success in high ticket sales. So I think there's definitely a lot there. And a lot of people, I would love to hear your opinion on this, but they just fear taking that step. And they don't want to get out of their comfort zone and do something they haven't done. But I mean, I feel like if you have a yearning, you have a desire to make a change and do something, you just need to kind of trust your gut a little bit and take a little bit of risk, right? That's maybe calculated and whatnot. But in doing that, I do feel like a lot of what you want is in that growth and on the other side of what you're looking for. Would you kind of agree with that?
Yeah, the growth happens outside of your comfort zone, right? And this is an ongoing journey. I mean, I've only been in high ticket sales for a year, but I'm learning as this goes along. Once you solve one problem, you get another problem. That's part of the growth process. So it's just have to embrace it. And I mean, if you become complacent, then you stop growing, right?
That's right.
Getting out of your comfort zone is part of it.
Yeah, solving problems. And one of my early on clients in real estate, when I had started, told me a doctor who worked in the Glendale Adventist ER department, Dr. Anthony Cardillo. He gave me some wisdom that still sticks with me today. But he said, Mike, we were at this house, and there was an older man there that was looking to sell his house, and he was looking to buy it. I was kind of mitigating the whole transaction. And the person, the older gentleman, he started like not feeling good. He was taking different medications. And the doctor immediately knew what was going on. He's just versed in it, right? He's a ER doctor, so he's used to just dealing with anything that comes his way in that moment in time. And in that moment, as the ambulance was coming, he said, you know what, Mike? In life, he said, there's a lot of problems, right? But I want to tell you something. He said, every single problem is solvable except one. And he said, unfortunately, that's death. Yeah. But he's like, dude, if you just have the mindset of knowing that every other problem you're dealing with, today it's this, tomorrow it's that. You think like you're saying, hey, you have this problem today, dude, life's going to hit you with another problem tomorrow. So I feel like if we just have that mindset and understand that, like we can overcome those challenges a lot more easily, 100%. So are you part of the Closers Network in school?
I am.
Okay, cool. Would you share a little bit with the audience what your experience has been in there, what type of maybe value you got in? Yeah. And for someone looking to get started in sales, I think that's an ultimate great starting point because number one, it's free right now, right? There's a lot of resources. We do 5 days of live trainings. I do like the Wednesday. We have a lot of other great trainers. But, is there anything you can share with them about the school the Closers Network in school?
Oh, that is a great community to be part of, especially, I mean, it's free. I mean, that type of training, other places would charge like $10,000, right? You're being trained with people who are still in the trenches, people who actually have a track record, who've been in it for a long time. But better yet, you're also networking with other people who are just getting started, just like yourself, and networking with other people who've been in the industry for a long time. So it's an amazing community where you can go there for help, for advice. You got the opportunity to role play, to get feedback. So definitely, if you're not part of that network, join, take advantage of it because there's so much value, so much content that's going to help with your high ticket career.
There you go. You mentioned Bedros earlier as maybe a mentor figure for you. Is there anyone else that has been, Brian Tracy you brought up? Is there anyone else that you feel like has had a big impact on you? Maybe it's just a following on Instagram or Facebook or YouTube. Is there anyone that comes to mind where you feel like, man, it would be really good for somebody else to be able to follow this person's message?
There's a lot of mentors that I've had, even in the fitness industry. I mean, like Pedro's probably the most impactful, right? He's basically shifted my mindset in terms of what's possible, getting me out of my comfort zone because I come from a traditional immigrant, family where, entrepreneurship is frowned upon, right? And so he's taught me to get out of my comfort zone, to take imperfect action. I'm a big perfectionist. What I've learned over time is to take action and then fix it later. So I think Pedro's has been probably the most impactful on my career to date with the fitness business as well as even the high ticket space. So
I agree. I also come from a traditional family, a little bit more entrepreneurial in the sense like my dad had, businesses. He ran mechanic shop, gas station, etc. My mom with the mindset of more school. You got to go get a degree and do something. Yeah. But just navigating that was for sure challenging. And I also am a perfectionist. So Bedros definitely had a tremendous impact. When I went and worked for him, man, it was just like constantly, like everything I was taught I had to unlearn, which was sometimes hard. Yeah. But then being in that environment and doing it and surrounding yourself with those people, it's just like you're able to do it a lot more easily. and unlearn some of those bad habits and learn what you should, be doing. And it's been huge on my life. I've had a huge impact in just, like you said, taking action and then course correcting, right? Along the way, making the necessary adjustment changes instead of sitting there, not doing anything about it, but overthinking and not taking the action, right? I'd love to know, like, is there anything we haven't really discussed that you feel like you would love to share with the audience about yourself or about sales or just anything you feel like might bring value to us?
Yeah, I think what I'm learning with this process, the ongoing learning, studying other people's calls, we get caught up sometimes learning a lot of strategies, right? And that can be overwhelming. And we try to utilize, when I learn something new, we're very eager. I'm going to use it on another call, right? And so what I've realized, so for example, I'm a martial artist for quite some time. And so
Really?
Kickboxing, taekwondo, boxing, but there's a lot of techniques that I've learned over time, but I don't use it in every sparring or fight match. And so I think of it that way, where when I'm on a call, you're not trying to force a technique, that doesn't fit. So I've learned that will naturally come out when I'm authentic and true to myself. That naturally just comes out. Like what you see on the calls is what you see in person. Mm-hmm. And I think it's important to have that consistency, that congruency as well.
Yeah, dude, that's powerful. That's really powerful. I just want to probably end it on that, because I feel like that alone, just to give you a different perspective that I certainly didn't have, is huge for our audience members to hear with the tangible example. So that being said, Sam, is there anywhere where people can follow you and your journey? You've been in high ticket for a year now. Where can people follow the rest of your journey? Can you follow you on Instagram, in the school, Closers Network in school? If you don't mind just sharing a little bit about where people can follow that journey.
Yeah, you can find me, Sammy No Fitness. That's on Instagram. I'm also on LinkedIn, also on Facebook. So happy to connect and network and learn from you as well. And if I can deliver any value, I'd be happy to do so as well.
Awesome, man. Well, really excited for the Christmas party we got lined up on Saturday. Thanks so much for flying out here and getting this podcast done with us. We're excited, man, and we hope to have you back here pretty soon.
All right, thanks for having me.
Awesome.